What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and we're starting a new segment of my channel. I don't know how long this one's going to last because the trailer reviews didn't last as long as I thought they were going to. But this is one that, if you know me, you know that TV shows and soccer are a big part of my life. So obviously doing Chelsea reviews, doing TV show reviews, it's easy because that's all I focus on. Well, another part of my life that is obviously taking up a big part is video games. So I thought to myself, you know what? I want to do some video game reviews of the more recent ones coming out and some of the ones that I play. Now, that being said, I am going to say that most likely you won't see any Call of Duty reviews on here because after Black Ops 2, that was the last one I liked. Ghost was okay, but it was mainly just for me because I like the sneaking around type thing, and Ghost was mainly that. So, I haven't played Infinite Warfare. Probably not gonna play any Call of Duty titles beyond that. So, yeah, I thought though, looking at some of the games, some of the games that have come out recently, some of the ones that are coming out this year, there are definitely a lot I want to look at. There are a lot that I want to play, and so I thought, why not give my opinion on them? Because it's fun to talk about games, and honestly, I don't have enough people to talk about games with. So here we go. The first one, Final Fantasy 15. Just finished it a couple of days ago. Haven't started on the new game plus, which is just pretty much you start over the game with all of your things and stuff like that. But it's interesting reading some of the reviews about it because it's you always get those people that hate a game for a certain reason, that like a game for a certain reason, and pretty much most reviews will say different things. It doesn't matter where you look, it doesn't matter what website you look on. There are going to be different reviews about the same game, just depending on people's taste. For this one, though, it's been very interesting because, there's no such thing as a perfect game. Well, aside from Kingdom Hearts, but that could just be because I'm a Kingdom Hearts fan. I don't know, maybe. I might be a Kingdom Hearts fan, maybe a little bit. So maybe that's why I think it's a perfect game, but yeah, who knows. But one thing that I've been reading about this game is that obviously nobody agrees it's a perfect game, but everybody does agree it's a good game with some flaws. And that's pretty much been the general consensus with everybody. Now, Final Fantasy wise, I'm not the biggest Final Fantasy fan in the world. I've played some of the Final Fantasy games. I think my favorite one is probably Final Fantasy IV just because I had it on the Super Nintendo when I was a kid, so there's a lot of nostalgia there. But I have played a couple of the other ones. I played Final Fantasy X, I played Final Fantasy VI, I've played Final Fantasy I. I want to play Final Fantasy VII so badly, but I played a few here and there. So this one, I got it and I started playing it, and pretty much like everybody else, I had the same reaction with the graphics. These are some of the best gameplay graphics that I think I've seen in a very, very, probably ever. I played a lot of games on the PlayStation 4. Batman Arkham Knight had some great graphics to it, but something about these graphics were just so beautiful. The graphics for Arkham Knight looked a bit more realistic. It looked more grim and dark because the Dark Knight. But these, obviously, Final Fantasy is a bit of a brighter game, so there are a lot of colors. These are just really beautiful landscapes. It's all its own thing. It's set in a world all its own. There are such creative. Obviously, the monsters in it are a lot of the Final Fantasy monsters, but some of them are redone in this new design, and the magic was so epic to watch whenever you blow up this little section where the enemies are is with fire or ice, and watching your character get covered with ice because he just happened to be too close to a blizzard attack. It was just really all around really awesome to look at. And I am not the only one that said this, but the food was absolutely beautiful to look at too. I mean, obviously food is beautiful in general. I mean, I've got a cupcake here for crying out loud. But this, for some reason, I don't know how they did it, but for the most part, aside from a couple of them, the dishes looked real. Like, even my brother, who normally is very skeptical of games, like, even watching me play, he loves to make fun of the games I play. Even he was like, we put some dumplings down on the table, he's like, those are real. I was like, I know. It looks so real. I got hungry for Chinese food one night because I saw some of the rice balls on there. I'm like, holy crap. The I mean, just the overall feel of the game is just the graphics were really, really good. The only part where the graphics failed a little bit is in the people, just because the people themselves actually are not bad, but whenever they're talking, if it's not a cutscene, their mouths don't move very naturally. But you know, that's not something that is a big part of the game, and you can skip those. You can skip it whenever they're going through that dialogue. You don't have to watch them talk. So that's not a big deal in my opinion. The rest of it, though, really good. In fact, from the very first cutscene, when you see Noctis's father, I think that was just. I remember seeing him thinking, that's a real person. That is a real person. He has skin blemishes. He looks like he's a real person just sitting there on the screen. It was incredible. So, really enjoyed all of that. The story itself, obviously, I can't get too much into without spoilers. I think I made. Let me talk about the game first, and then I'm going to put a spoiler warning before I get into the story itself. The story I did like. A lot of people are saying it's too complicated. I actually thought it was too simple, in my opinion. I think there was a lot more they could have done that they didn't because there's so many side missions. And I think it got bogged down there, and they didn't have enough room to do more story. Because honestly, I did want a bit more story. When you get to the end, it sort of wraps up very quickly. But like I said, I'll talk more about that in the spoiler talk. Uh, the actual gameplay, the fighting mechanics and stuff like that. Honestly, I'm not really a big person on gameplay mechanics. A lot of people will talk about, oh, I prefer the shooter, I prefer the RPG. Honestly, I've enjoyed every type of gameplay mechanic that I've had. The first-person shooter I enjoy, the turn-based style I enjoy, the free-flowing fighting system of Kingdom Hearts I love. So this one was kind of a little bit of a mix between that turn-based system and the free-flowing combat, because you have the moments where you have to press the block button to block, or hold it down to dodge, and then you attack and attack and attack, and you switch up your weapons based on the enemy you're fighting. And it was fairly well done. There are a few moments I think where just the camera work can get a little wonky, but that's only in tight spaces. So if you're fighting in an open space, you're completely fine. You can see all the time. But there are some moments where for some reason the camera would like lock in that one position where you can't see anything. It's just like, get out of there, I'm dying. What are you doing? But once again, it does help because you've got the square button you can just hold down and he just dodges the entire time. You don't have to worry about it. The other part of it that I think a lot of people couldn't really get into that I didn't mind as much is the fact that you only control Noctis, so the rest of your team are fighting on their own. Now, some people say, I prefer to fight with more people because it's Final Fantasy. This feels restrictive for this game. But this isn't really the first time they've done this. Final Fantasy 13, you could only control one character out of the party instead of the entire party. So I don't think it was poorly done. I think it actually makes you feel a bit more of a connection with it to be just that one person instead of controlling everybody in the party. It makes you feel like you are Noctis. You're playing as him. So it helps you connect to him a bit more. And honestly, that helped with the story as well, in my opinion. But the fighting, like I said, I thought it was very well done. I think the only part of it that may throw some people off is that you can pause, like right in the middle of the fight. They also have a wait mode where you actually stop, and you can use Libra to scan your enemies and see the weaknesses, and time is stopped as you're doing this. It is a little bit jarring, and I had to turn it off for some of the fights because there were moments where I just needed to wait for them to attack and then block. But I couldn't because whenever I stood still, it would go into wait mode, and so the enemy wouldn't attack. So I had to turn it off for some of the fights. But it did help a little bit on some fights where, okay, well, I need to find out about this enemy. We'll turn on wait mode and then scan the enemy. But then at some points I felt like I was cheating just a little bit, so I did turn it off at one point. But then, like I said, just the fact that you can pause right in the middle of it, change your gear, change the magic you're using, change, what your not opponents, your team, the weapons they're using, what you can do with them. Speaking of your teammates, I didn't have that big of an issue with their fighting. I think they did what they were supposed to, and honestly, sometimes they did help me out of a jam. At times, it felt like they were drawing some enemies away whenever I needed to focus on just one. And then, of course, there's the link attacks that you can do with them that really add kind of a bit of a team feel to it, where you attack from behind. It adds a blindside link, and you can attack with one of your teammates. Or if you block and you do a counterattack, sometimes you'll attack with one of your teammates. So I thought it was well done how they handled all of that. And on top of that, the little moves you could do with each of them, they have kind of a technique that they can do. Sometimes, Prompto would shoot. You ask them to shoot somebody, and then you do a little trigger command, and then you're shooting them, and it's like taking out their limbs, which that is another thing about these fights, is that the limbs can be taken out as well. So now you're fighting one of the tall giraffe-looking monsters. You hit its legs enough, it gets broken, and then it falls over. Now it's vulnerable to even stronger attacks. So I just like the little nuances they threw in there. I like the team, how they work together on some occasions. And overall, the fighting was really well done as far as the flowing. So overall, before I get into spoilers, if you want to stop here, in my opinion, it's worth the money. It really is worth the time as well. And the side quests are interesting enough to sort of put you out having fun. Some of them do get a little repetitive. Sometimes it's just, go here, fight this monster, come back, collect the bounty on the bounty hunts. But, they do feel very much like side quests, and some of them do give you some good rewards. So I'm not complaining. I think overall, it's a fun little RPG type open world game. They kind of mesh the two together, and being one of the first games I think really has tried to do that, I think they accomplished it very well. If not, if the gameplay isn't your type, if you prefer something completely different as far as the gameplay, I would say at least watch somebody play it or something like that, because honestly, the graphics really are worth probably at least half of the money worth paying. It's wonderful to look at. So those are my opinions on it. That's pretty much where this non-spoiler talk ends. So you haven't seen the game yet, if you don't want to know about the story, click off now. But if you have played the game, if you want to know my thoughts on the story, I personally thought it really was a very interesting and compelling story, mainly because I think they really captured just how the team felt. They did a very good job of capturing that team feel overall. Now, there were some problems with it. I'm not going to say it was a perfect story. But the main problem came whenever they took focus away from the team. The little cutscenes where they'd go to Luna, and she is now talking with whatever her name, Gentiana, I think. I can't remember that woman's name. The woman that turned out to be Shiva. But those scenes where they cut away to her, I understood how they fit in with the story, but it didn't compel me as much as what's going on with the team. How are they getting along? Even Prompto, who honestly kind of got on my nerves after a little while, I still thought he was part of the team. He still had a place in the team. While he didn't really contribute a whole lot aside from pictures, you felt like his fighting was at least why he was there. He has good fighting technique. He has guns to use. So I don't know. I just thought the team really was what compelled the story forward. Now, it was pretty much your basic, I guess, adventure story. They all leave. Noctis has to get married to Luna, and then all of a sudden Noctis' home gets attacked, and his dad gets killed, and now all of a sudden he's the king, and now he's got to get married to Luna to sort of solidify everything, and the Empire doesn't want that to happen, so they're trying to stop him from receiving the blessings of these gods and goddesses. And so, it's a fairly simple adventure story as far as everything goes, and it was kind of interesting to see that some people found it too complicated, because, like I said, I actually wanted a bit more, not as far as the main story goes. Whenever they're in Lucius at first, I liked that part. It was whenever things started going, they went to Altissia, I loved that part, and then after that, it felt like everything just sort of happened so fast. One minute they're on the train, and this is after Luna's now died. Ignis can't see anymore because of the attack, so now they are all kind of broken apart. The team is broken apart. And then there's no real resolution. Like Ignis kind of says no more squabbling, and then there's like okay, and then I don't know. There was no real moment of why is Gladio mad at Noctis because Ignis got hurt during the fight. Like how is that Noctis's fault? Why is he so frustrated with him? There was no talk about that. There's no talk about what actually happened to Ignis to cause this. You know, like I wanted to see that. I didn't want to just hear, oh, he got hurt during the fighting. It's like, okay, well, how? Why did he lose his sight? What happened? And then all of a sudden, you know, after they finally work things out, then all of a sudden Arden shows up on the train, and now Prompto got knocked off the train, and now all of a sudden no more Prompto. So it's just like, well, okay. And then all of a sudden he gets Shiva's blessing. It's like, well, where did this come from? And then all of a sudden they're going to the fort that apparently Prompto's being held at, and now they're there. They say Prompto. Oh, and it turns out Prompto's actually one of the little Magitech troopers that was born out of a lab. Okay, where did this come from, and why is everybody just like no reaction? You know, I'm glad they didn't do the whole what you're one of those, you're a freak. What? I'm glad with the fact that they were just like, who cares where you were born? You're still Prompto. But there was no reaction. There was no really. Holy crap! I didn't know you were Magitech created. No, it was just like, who cares where you were born, man? And honestly, I mean, the voice acting was really good. I would say the only one that maybe got on my nerves a little bit was Cindy, just because she sounded like a woman trying to do a very country accent, and yeah, she could not do a very country accent. But honestly, I mean, the voice acting was not the problem there. It was just the fact that there were no reactions from the characters. You know, there was no dialogue in there about when did you find this out? Did you know the whole time? You know, what? How did we not know about this? There was none of that. And then after all of that goes down, they end up start fighting. You leave to go to the crystal, which there are moments where it feels like maybe if you chose something different, I'd wonder what would happen. Like there's a moment where you can possibly leave Ignis up top whenever he's blind, instead of bringing him down into the mines with you. And then when you're down there, you're facing one of those big... I don't remember what they're called, but I hated them in Final Fantasy X. Like, they just always... They affected all of my party with poison and everything. It was so hard to fight them. But whenever you bring him down there, he actually uses his senses to find out, okay, I need to destroy this thing with fire. And so it ends up being the one that actually kills the creature because we couldn't. And I wonder what would have happened if I had decided to leave him up there. And then there's a moment where you decide, am I going to stay and fight with my friends, or am I going to go to the crystal and try to see if I can maybe destroy the demons forever? And so, you know, I obviously chose the crystal because I felt like maybe that's the way to save my friends. So I wonder if it is possible to make different decisions. Maybe if you guys have tried something different, maybe let me know. I'm probably going to play it again at some point to see. But you know, you go to the crystal, you get sucked inside and find out that Arden is actually like behind this whole mythos that they didn't. That is one thing that they didn't explain too well, but I was able to follow it just fine. But then, like I said, after that, you get sucked into the crystal, you meet Bahamut, and then coma for, I think they said 10 years, and then he's out. And this is honestly my biggest frustration. We don't get to see anybody. We got to see Talcott, the little boy, turned into a grown man, and then that was it. We don't get to see Cindy as an older woman. We don't get to see Iris as an older woman. We don't get to see Sid as an even older man. We don't get to see any of these friends that we made earlier in the game. We don't get to see any of them all grown up. Or, well, more grown up if you're Sid. And that was just kind of frustrating for me. It's like we're hearing all of these stories. We're hearing stories about Iris is apparently now this badass hunter. I'm like, I want to see that. Iris was already like... I'm not gonna lie, if I were Noctis, I would have a big problem trying to choose between Iris and Luna. Just, Luna's beautiful, and she's obviously got this whole, like, kind of, I don't know, mysterious... She's the Oracle, so she almost seems like she's from heaven. But Iris just seems so fun and playful. I'm just like, Noctis, I don't envy your position right now, because you're marrying this one beautiful woman, but then you've also got this really cute girl that's just a lot of fun to hang around. But anyway, hearing that she is now this badass hunter, I'm just like, I want to see that. Hearing that Cindy is apparently still working at the garage, and hearing that Prompto is still trying to hit on her and not working, I kind of want to see that. While it's really stupid when it happens earlier in the game, I'm not gonna lie, seeing an older Prompto hitting on an older Cindy sounds interesting. I don't know. It just feels like they didn't take advantage of all of that, because the next thing you know, you're heading back to the city, and then of course we heard from Bahamut that apparently the king would have to sacrifice himself. I've heard this story before. So you get there. Apparently the only god who would not join you was Ifrit, and so you have to fight him, which we actually saw at the beginning of the game for like a few seconds. And so we see that, and then you fight him. You end up killing him with Shiva's help, and then you go in. Arden's in there. He kind of knocks your friends out, so it's just you and him. You take him on, you fight him. Eventually you kill his body, but he's still alive, like in the beyond. And so Noctis goes, sits in his throne while his friends protect the castle from all the demons. And then Noctis sacrifices himself, all of the kings of old, including his father, who ends up delivering the final blow, kill him, and then his body goes into, I guess, the afterlife of this world. And then that's where he and the kings of old use the last of his power and finish Arden off for good. And that's the end of him. And then that's it. You don't get to see... You get to see light return to the world, because at this point it's all darkness. But you don't get to see anybody's reaction to it. You don't get to see any of the people. Does Prompto end up with Cindy? Who knows? Does Iris end up becoming... Who ends up becoming the next king and queen? Who knows? It's sort of like this rushed ending that... I don't know. It was weird because it took a lot of time. There was a lot of time from when you finally finished that final battle to the actual end of the game. I'd say there was probably like 15 to 20 minutes in that time space. And yet I feel like there was like one resolution where you and Luna end up together in the afterlife. So I don't understand that. Why take all that time? And you really think about it, Lord of the Rings took about 30 minutes to finish up their movies. But in those 30 minutes, resolution after resolution after resolution after resolution. This was 15 to 20 minutes of resolution. And then that was it. Nothing else. We could see, like, the final thing was them at the campfire. And then, admittedly, this was an emotional scene. We see Noctis telling them that, this is the last... Obviously, this is the last time they're going to be together. And so he's trying to get the words out that he cares for them and he doesn't want this to be it. And so he's just like, I can't believe it's this hard, and starts crying, and then Gladio's crying and Prompto's crying. I'm just like, yeah, this is emotional. This is really freaking emotional. But the problem is that there's no real resolution there. We just see what happened before they got to that final battle. How's that a resolution? It's not. It's just another part of the story. It's emotional, sure. But I wanted more resolution for the game, and they didn't give me that. So, all in all, I mean, the story was not bad. It's just the ending, I think, was way too rushed. Not enough resolution. And I don't know. Does that make it a bad story? No. Does it make it a good story? Absolutely not. I think it's a very average story overall. But I still enjoyed the first part. I still enjoyed the team itself. I think the characters were fun enough to hang around, and they did have some emotional payoff. I think that final scene was very emotional. So, yeah, all in all, average story. Gameplay, like I said, was really good. The graphics were amazing. But whatever you do, when you're going through those final pictures, do not pick a picture of Iris to take with you into the final battle. Or Iris, sorry. I see Iris, I want to say Iris, but it's Iris. Don't take a picture of Iris in that final battle, because whenever you get to that final scene of the game, and you see a picture of Iris lying on the throne, and you see Noctis pick it up and hand it to his beloved Luna, which should be an emotional scene of them spending their life together in the afterlife, turns into a freaking hysterical joke that you just can't stop laughing at for like the next 20 minutes. So yeah, don't ruin that final scene like I did. That was quite the ruined scene. But anyway, that's it for my first game review. Hopefully you guys liked it. If you do, leave a like and subscribe. Let me know so I can know to continue to do more video game reviews. Uh, I finished also Batman the Telltale series. I finished it a couple weeks ago, but I want to replay it to kind of see what my opinions actually are of the game, because it's one of those choose your own adventure games, and if it's as linear as I hope it's not, then that will definitely change my opinion on the game. But either way, I'll probably play that again and then review it. And I've got Watch Dogs 2 to review, and then after that, there are a few games coming out this month and then next month that I'm gonna want to play and review and stuff like that. So hopefully this becomes something that you guys start watching. I don't know. If not, then I'll just go back to playing video games and shut my mouth about it. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.